credit union in Long Island? Oh, yeah. Right. There are a number of CDFI loan funds, but those don't take deposits, so you couldn't go there and bank. So it'd be great to see, Long Islanders get together and start to form these community development credit unions that would serve historically redlined neighborhoods on Long Island with responsible financial services. Sure.
Hi. Every year at Christmas time, when they show the holiday classics and they show It's a Wonderful Life, and I can never believe that people don't run out and join their local credit union after that. So, I'm just curious if, anybody's built on top of that concept that's going on at this time of year when that movie runs nonstop and some families gather to anyway, I conceptually it seems like an opportunity. I'm just wondering if anybody's worked on that.
It's so funny you mentioned that because who's the Buffalo affiliate of Jobs with Justice, Center for Economic?
Yeah, they just joined.
Oh, okay. So I just heard about this, but they're having a film series, and they're going to play It's a Wonderful Life. And we were talking to them about you should connect it to CDFIs because it really, that's it. For those who've seen it, that's the premise is the main character runs a CDF. What would be a CDFI?
I just wanted to say I've never watched that movie. I know it exists, in terms of, and I don't think anyone from our members has ever watched that movie. So, yeah. Yeah, and I would be interested in maybe running or finding something like that, for our members. But anyway, I just wanted to say to the issue before about building wealth in the community and about also the examples that I have seen with the work that the co-op is doing is that a couple of things. One is the pooling of resources. And that I think it's very interesting how they're bringing the resources, be it their knowledge or even financial resources, or even when they go outside of the community, when they have asked for help for specific things, and they have reached out to other people or allies sometimes that are also within the Black and Brown communities, and they have. It's like I see this net that they're creating, and I also see how that net is empowering not only them but others as well, because they reached out to, for example, to someone who is just learned how to went through the accountant program, and she's Latina and she's just starting, and she has become like a person who's like an advisor to the co-op, and I see how she's learning about co-ops and what it entails. So it's like this back and forth where how something like a co-op is not only the members that get that benefit, but you can see the community at large starting to get that benefit. For larger corporations or organizations or businesses, for example, I was thinking. One of the things that we want to do is, for example, to the hospitals. Let's say, why couldn't the hospitals here on Long Island, for Christmas, buy the poinsettias from the Farm Workers Cooperative? Every time they have people go in and visit their loved ones or whoever, they're going to see, hopefully, a big sign that says, this hospital is actually supporting this cooperative, is investing in the community. That one that makes me go to that hospital more than the one that is not, I think, right? So that's the way we should be thinking about these things.
That is part of one of the strategies for building community wealth, is building around what is called anchor institutions. Institutions in the community like hospitals and universities, which are not going anywhere. They're in the community, but they could then take their capacity of resources and they could employ people from the community, such as that's the job of Operations Long Island, and they can buy from local community organizations. It's a way of really rebuilding it. That's what's being done in terms of the project in Cleveland for building community wealth. So those are good examples of that. I should say, just underline, by the way, that the Buffalo Jobs with Justice just joined the equity agenda 2 days ago. It was just approved 2 days ago. They applied and were unanimously approved. Are there other questions or comments? Or observations of any sort? Do either of you want to say anything? Roger?
Just wanted to add that we have an emerging industry on Long Island, offshore wind, and the whole energy-related sector, which is growing very quickly. And it's built into it is state legislation that requires investment strategies. And I think that as the developers are now beginning to make their proposals in order to sell power back into the grid, it's not a bad time to think about community priorities. The legislation that requires labor agreements, for example, talks about a very heavy emphasis on underserved communities economically being advantaged in this new industry. So it's an example of where we're working and where there's a lot of pressure, where there may be jobs coming about in the future, probably significant numbers of them, to bring up people from the bottom, and it's worth paying attention to.
Let me also underscore something. There's a tendency, you used the word I think was very important, underserved communities. It's important for us to understand that that's not limited to black and brown communities. And we're talking about community, and if we fail to do that, we don't speak to the majority of people on Long Island, then we end up with really negative political consequences. I think the last election was a good example of negative political consequences. So we need to understand, and I think we need to put right at the center, underserved communities, understanding that to a large extent, that certainly is true for many black and brown communities, for indigenous communities, but it's also true for a lot of other communities that really that really are suffering significantly. So have to have that. That's part of what I think is the inclusive vision of social justice that really Jobs with Justice stands for. So what I would underline here is that, and there are many dimensions to this campaign and a lot of discussions we will be having as to how Jobs with Justice will organize and really try to advance an effective campaign for building community wealth. But one very immediate thing, which I'm very involved in, Andy made reference to it, that's the campaign for public banking. And, if you have a short amount of time, an hour a week, that's all you need, a few phone calls. There's a part of the campaign is to get local elected officials to sign a letter of support. And we have a letter that has been signed by about 85 local elected officials, all the elected officials in Rochester, the 75% of the city council in New York City. But we need significant number of people on Long Island. We don't have any yet. I've engaged in some dialogue. So I would love to have your support, and that would be if you know somebody on a school board, if you have any contacts with people who are elected to county legislatures in Nassau, Suffolk County, or local town councils, all right, that would be a good entree just to get them to sign a letter, which is a letter of support, not to create a public bank, but to change the law so as to facilitate a process by which communities that want to create a public bank will be able to do so in a way which is financially sound, transparent, and really accountable to the communities, and will facilitate then using that money to reinvest in the communities, providing support. All right. But I'd like Landy to clarify, maybe you would benefit from a clarification. What is the difference between a public bank, all right, and a credit union? And why can't you just use credit unions? Obviously you can't, but explain that. It would be very helpful.
All right. So the public bank, if you live in Nassau County, Suffolk County, you pay your taxes, as the video showed. That money is being held by the county government. It's the same case in New York City. The local government needs a bank account, just like you or I do. Right now they're using, I think they use Chase out here, which was the worst, by far, the worst offender when it came to charging overdraft fees in New York. And they're also the largest funder of fossil fuels on earth, Chase Bank. So why do we want our public money in those institutions? Let's, again, put it in a public bank. So that's the big difference, is we're not talking about you or I going up to the public bank and opening a branch and then being able to open an account at that branch, excuse me. We're talking about this being a public option for local governments. Could happen at the county level, city level, state level, so we can move away from Wall Street banks. And then, as the video showed, the public bank would partner with the CDFI credit union that's on the ground, serving communities, and help them grow and expand. And that's actually how it works in North Dakota, where it's a partnership model. So the Bank of North Dakota is fostering the growth of local credit unions and banks.
Okay, we have now just about 5 minutes left for this session. Okay, so let us be brief and wrap it up. Okay?
I still don't understand the difference between a regular credit union like Bethpage or Jovial or Teachers Credit Union, whatever the hell it might be, and the public bank, because I divested specifically from Chase back in 2009 as a protest. But I was hoping that the credit unions were actually a better bet. So
Oh yeah, no, it's sorry if I'm not being clear. So the difference is that the public bank isn't opening up like a local branch where you're going to open up your account or deposit your money. It's serving as the depository institution for your local government. So maybe that's the Suffolk County government, or yeah, and then they're partnering. It's working with Bethpage Credit Union to help Bethpage do more lending in the community.
All right.
So we should be opening accounts with the credit unions locally? Yes. Okay, all right.
Okay, you want to go?
I just want to say the big difference between credit unions and banks is credit unions are co-ops. We all own it. If you join a credit union, you're one of the shareholders. So your money, anything coming from your money goes back to the credit union, not to somebody's pocket up in Chase or wherever.
Yeah, the only difference on that is that very few, as a member of a credit union for many years, never went to a credit union board meeting. And basically the credit unions, they tend simply to operate like banks. They don't have to, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we could in Saskatchewan, the members of a credit union organized, and they really took over the credit union and decided and chose and changed the direction of its investments. Right, but that is not the way in which, to the best of my understanding, Bethpage or Jovia, which I've been a member of for 40 years, or others operate. And I mean, I'm as much responsible as anyone else. I've never gone to a board meeting and questioned how they run the operation. But you're absolutely right about the legal reality.
Genesee Co-op in Rochester, that's a real co-op, that credit union. Although they were under the, I don't know, something with ESL. I'm not sure what when they first got started, they had some support from ESL. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I think we are finished for today for this session. Let me thank our panelists, Sister Joan, Roger, Randy, and Maria, and our guest from New York City who traveled out here, Andy Morrison. Thank you very much.